Hi everyone, welcome to my one take film review, straight in from the cinema after seeing a film and reporting straight to camera in one single take to capture the spontaneous experience of moviegoing. And this film this week is Echo Valley, starring Julianne Moore, Sydney Sweeney, and Domhnall Gleeson in three very strong central performances in what in the end amounts to a flip on the traditional man must rescue his kidnapped family film, where it's actually the mother who has to do it. And you spend the first act of this film thinking, Julianne Moore playing the mother of Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney is a drug addict with a very serious set of threats coming from the friends she's made through that. And Julianne Moore is the mother who has to save her from their clutches, basically. But you sort of spend the first act not quite necessarily realizing that's what you're getting into. Instead, you'll think that this is a quite interesting study of a mother-daughter relationship. But as you watch, you gradually realize that we're not going to see this relationship develop. Every time it looks like character is about to take center stage in this film, plot intervenes. So the, every character will do exactly what is necessary for the plot to develop. There is an absolutely ludicrous performance by Fiona Shaw as a friend of the central character. I like Fiona Shaw, wonderful classical actress, but her accent in this film, she seems to have left half her heart or larynx in the Irish Sea and the other half in the Atlantic. But she's also spent some time, I'm guessing, in Minnesota. Like, it was a dog's dinner, quite honestly. And you realise that she hasn't been given much to do in this role because her job is to be very useful in Act 4. You know how there are characters where you think, oh, you're going to be useful in Act 4, aren't you? Because you're not allowed to be too complicated because then that would muddle stuff up. Even the best analogy for that in recent films is the really lovely characterization, much better written than this one, of the police friend. Is it the police friend in Get Out? The guy who's the friend who then appears at the end in a car. I mean, it's really the same story in that sense. And you quite often think, oh, right, your role is to pop up later on, while the central character goes through something really important in the middle and we learn a lot about them. So there's a lot of plot beats which, to keep with the Get Out comparison for a moment, are not handled with the same elegance. I mean, you have to say the brilliance of some of these genre breakout pictures of the last few years isn't just in the way they flip traditional scripts or maybe ask new questions about traditional narratives. It's also that those narratives are done very well, that the balance between character development and plot development is seamless, and you couldn't say that for this film. I think the biggest problem is that it kind of falls back into, for the record, Julianne Moore's recent partner's death. Her partner is a woman, so you sort of think, oh, that's interesting. That challenges again, a certain cliche of the genre, but at the same time, actually, it ends up repeating it because, oh, it turns out she's the dead ex-wife from the beginning of the movie. They cast Julianne Moore in the central role and still managed to produce that trope. It sort of felt like we were often falling back into plot beats and cliches. However, as the film develops, there's a very, very interesting performance by Domhnall Gleeson. Again, I don't think he's given enough to do, but he is a very likable actor. It's actually quite hard not to like him, I think. There's something approachable and quite vulnerable about him as an actor. So to cast him as the villain shows in some ways the seriousness of their intent as filmmakers in making this, because they want us to see these characters as layered. And Domhnall Gleeson constantly discloses layers to this character with what little he's given to do by the script. There's one point where he finds a photograph of Julianne Moore and her ex-wife on a table, and Julianne Moore he says, what happened? And she says, oh, she was thrown from, I think, a vehicle or a horse or a tractor. It's all very farm oriented, so I can't remember all the different, whether you're on horseback or on a tractor, there are just so many different farm elements to this film, and they become more and more important as it goes on. But he's thrown from something, and he says, oh, that sucks, and puts the photo down. But he manages to introduce a moment's repressed empathy to the line, and the way he puts the photo down in a rush, almost like it's burnt his hand, suggests that he's not been without experiences of loss. Now, the truth is that I think there was a time in mainstream filmmaking where a film like this would have given you a fuller sense of who all these people were. Even Julianne Moore's performance is very closed. We really don't learn that much about the character. She is reduced in a sense to a series of tropes: the recent loss, the love for the daughter, which is interesting, but again, it's all very externalized. It's all in action. I don't see anything wrong with the occasional dip into talking or expressing feeling in a slightly more interesting way. I don't think there's a problem with backstory in these films. You could build it in. The final act, when all the twists come, and they're very, very good, but they'd be more satisfying if we understood the people to whom this is happening. We're watching, in a sense, the actors having to work against the script to give us as much as they possibly can fit in to the neat, trim little world of the story, of the characters' backstories and psychologies. You know what? I get it. They have to fit this into an hour and 40. It's been made by Apple TV Plus. It's going to be very formulaic. And there's nothing wrong with classical structure. But I think in this film, we can really feel how much writers and actors in Hollywood really want to push towards something more. And we seem to be stuck at the moment in a world where either you get sort of languorous, almost plodding filmmaking, sometimes on those 12-parters on Netflix, where you think, oh, come on, pull it together, or else you have this where everything has to happen at 100 miles an hour. And I wonder if we couldn't find a happy medium. You would think that something like Apple TV Plus would be the place to do it, actually. But it feels like we've lost that character-driven plot version of story. We've sort of lost it, and I don't know where it went, and I think I want it back. And that's what I ultimately get from this film. But you know what? It was a lot of fun, and you will enjoy it. Thanks very much. See you soon.